Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Thursday, May the 1st, 2025. And can you believe we're into the 5th month already? It just seems like yesterday we were doing the whole Christmas New Year thing and what is Australia Day and everything else. And here we are in May. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? On this day, actually I expect this week to, for the next week of May, that there'll be a fair few good things that have happened on this day, big events that have happened on this day in history, because it's Cinco de Mayo weekend. So I remember Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Oscar De La Hoya, Canelo Alvarez have all had major fights on Cinco de Mayo weekend. So I'm sure there'll be a few that'll be of note, including actually on this day. To start, Floyd Mayweather Jr. actually fought Shane Mosley on this day in 2010. I was actually at this fight. I was at the MGM Grand, and a really disappointing performance by Shane Mosley. He started pretty well. He rocked Floyd Mayweather in the second round and then just couldn't go on with it. He barely got out of second gear for the rest of the fight, and I don't know whether that was a sign of Shane Mosley really slipping, although he did fight Manny Pacquiao a year later. And I think Canelo Alvarez the year after that. But in this particular fight, yeah, he didn't really show a lot. But I don't know whether it's because of him or Mayweather just adjusted and he just couldn't get off. But it was a impressive performance by Floyd Mayweather, but not so great sitting in the stands, because it was pretty much a masterclass after that, as Floyd Mayweather did with a lot of people, didn't he? So that's what happened on this day. Also on this day in 1983, Edwin Rosario, the great lightweight and super lightweight world champion, defeated Jose Luis Ramirez on points for the WBC lightweight title. Now, Ramirez would actually avenge that loss. I think it was the year after. I think it was. He'd actually knock Edwin Rosario out in the 4th round. And yeah, that was on this day in 83. And also on this day, 2015, our own Billy Dibb went up against Japanese fighter Takashi Miura and was beaten over 12 rounds for the WBC 130-pound title. So that's what's happened on this day. Now, last night, before we get into the news of the day, which is continuing to be, it's all Tim Zoo in the last sort of 24 hours, as you can imagine, but we did the dream fights with Canelo Alvarez, and some interesting results along the journey, and some that surprised us. Actually, the results of some didn't surprise. It was probably the voting that surprised. Some of them were very, very one-sided, and some were probably very close. But the first one, I'll just quickly go through them. I know a lot of you probably watched last night, so I'll just skip through them with the results anyway. And for those that didn't see it, just a bit of a recap on what actually happened. So we had Canelo up against 10 fighters. The first one was Mike McCallum. Now, this was very, very one-sided in favour of Canelo. I actually thought it would have been a very, very, very tough fight for Canelo. McCallum was such an underrated fighter. Excellent fighter at 154, 160, 168 and 175. So probably obviously a lot like Canelo as far as his weight journey goes, but very good fighter, and as I said, very underrated. Look, I still went for Canelo in a close one, but there were some that thought McCallum would get the job done, but not as many as what I thought. The next one was, who was it there? Julian Jackson was the other one, the Hawk. Now, I actually thought that apart from the power edge, Canelo sort of had Julian Jackson covered sort of on all fronts, and I thought he would win probably a lopsided decision over Julian Jackson, and about 75% of people agreed with that. The next one was Chris Eubank Sr. I thought that would be an awkward fight for Canelo, but, because Eubank, he was a bit unorthodox, a bit all over the shop. But he could box, he could punch, he'd do everything, but I just think he didn't really have the repertoire to go with Canelo, and I had him, I think it might have been it was on points or either a late round stoppage, I reckon, for Canelo over Eubank. Same with Nigel Benn. I thought that would probably be one of the easier fights for Canelo. Benn would be hard, don't get me wrong. I mean, we all know that he was 100 miles ahead and just head down and throwing haymakers, and there was no second gear or plan B or anything like that. It was just full steam ahead and let's go. I think that would have worked right into Canelo's hands. So I had Canelo Alvarez probably stopping Nigel Benn probably in 8 or 9 rounds. And again, I think it was actually, that was the most one-sided vote. I think it was up to about 94% actually voted for Alvarez over Benn. The next one was Joe Calzaghe. This one was close. I think it was just in favour of Joe Calzaghe, or did it swing at the last minute? I can't remember, but it was close. I actually think that Joe Calzaghe would win this fight comfortably. I did sort of liken his style to a Dimitri Bivol. Again, not as polished as Bivol, but the same sort of in and out, high volume, punches coming from all angles, and his style would be all wrong for Canelo. And I thought he would win a pretty easy decision in my mind with Joe Calzaghe. The next one was Oscar De La Hoya, the big grudge match, and I actually went for Canelo in this one. Remember, this is at 154, maybe even 160, depends. And I just think Oscar's best work was 147 and below. So I actually went for Canelo to be a bit too big and strong for Oscar, and he's sort of pinpoint punching, and his work rate might be a little bit too much for Oscar, and he might get him out of there late in 10 or 11 rounds. But that was 50-50, that one. So that was the only one that was 50-50 for the whole night. Then we went to Thomas Hearns. Again, I went for... Well, this was an interesting one because at 154, I thought Hearns would probably be the superior fighter. At 160, I thought that Canelo would be the superior fighter. And again, it's amazing to think that 6 pounds could make all the difference. But if I had to pick one against the trend, because most people, I think it was about, about 60% or something went for Thomas Hearns. I actually went for Canelo Alvarez, which upset a few people, but just calling it the way I see it. The next one was Bernard Hopkins. I went for Bernard Hopkins in this. I think his style would suit Canelo as far as being predictable, and but he is awkward and everything as well. I just thought he's such a big guy was Hopkins, and his style and just a lot of things sort of coming in. I'd call it a gut feel. I went for Hopkins over Canelo, and I think the majority of people agreed with that, probably 65% or something agreed with that. And we had a couple more. We had James Toney was the other one we threw in there. Didn't actually have him in the original 10. I had a template sort of made up for him, a slide, but I forgot to put him in and replaced him with someone else. But he had to be in there. I actually went for Canelo Alvarez in this one. And again, we didn't have a poll, but the majority of people actually thought maybe Toney would win, but I'm with Canelo in this one. Who else was there? Oh, Marvelous Marvin Hagler was the next one. And this was very, very one-sided in favour of Marvelous Marvin Hagler. I think about 75% of people picked him. I thought it'd be a lot closer than that. Look, I ended up going for Marvin Hagler, but I wouldn't be surprised if Canelo had won that fight because, well, I think it was pointed out that Hagler's best wins were against all fighters coming up from a lot lower weight classes, including Leonard, Hearns and Duran, especially Duran, of course. But look, I just think they just happened to be the best fighters around at the time. You look at what he did against the best middleweights of that era, and it was all pretty one-sided sort of stuff. So I did pick him over Canelo, but would be a tough one. And then the final one was Roy Jones Jr. I actually think this would be completely one-sided, and I think that Roy Jones Jr. would win this fight very, very easily. Just a lot bigger. His style, he would just tie Canelo up in knots. He really would. I don't think Canelo would have a chance to stop and set and punch. Jones would make him pay for every single mistake that he made, and I think that for me that would be pretty one-sided. And I think it was about 70% or something was the same for Roy Jones Jr. to beat Canelo Alvarez. So it's a fun exercise anyway. It's sort of getting momentum as we go. It's just a bit of fun, so don't get all cut up about it if you do watch it and don't agree. It's just the concept is just have a quick look at one of the greats' careers, and then, as I said, match him up against 10, or in the case of last night, 11 fighters, just to see how they go, and just have a discussion point. And I deliberately don't put the fighters in against the greats from the 30s and 40s and 50s. It's just really hard to I think it's really hard to get a gauge. It's just a different time. Come here, man. Tangled up in a tree there. But yeah, every Wednesday night, check it out. Next week is actually going to be Costa Zoo. So should be entertaining that one. Some really good fighters that we can match him up with. And should be a little bit of fun as well. And I think I'm going to do pretty soon a best of the best dream fight that can be made geez, where are you taking me? The best dream fights that can be made in all divisions over the course of history. I think it should be a bit of fun as well. And if you've got any preferences as far as fighters you might want to put up or fights you might want to put up, let me know and I'll put them in the program. All right. Now, as I said in the last 24 hours, it's all been about Tim Tszyu, Sebastian Fundora, as expected, all the news sites all over it, which is obviously fantastic. But one thing that did come up that I saw, a lot of the sites were just the usual, the details, although it hasn't been officially announced. That's probably the one thing to remember. Hasn't been officially announced by anyone. It's just been, it's been leaked by the management of both teams, and George Rose did a really good interview with Jay McAllister yesterday that if you haven't seen, check that out. So, I mean, it's going to happen, but it just hasn't been 100% officially announced by PBC and DAZN and everyone else. But as I said, it will. But the date, it looks like it will be July 19th. There was some talk that maybe it might even be August. I think George Rose said that as well. But by all accounts, it will be July 19. And what a weekend that will be. I think I said yesterday it's also the weekend of Belunga and Shiraz, Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda, Puello and Matthias as well in there. What was the other fight? There's another one as well in there, of course. But also the Jesse Bam Rodriguez is fighting, now I'll try and get his name right, Pumaleli Cafu. That'll be a unification fight. That's going to take place in Texas on July 19 as well. So we could have 3 big fight nights on the one night in the States. But there has been talk that maybe the Tank Davis and Lamont Roach fight will be on that card, which will be fantastic. Sam Goodman will be on the card. That's been confirmed. Sam's actually said that he will be on the Tszyu Fundora undercard, which will be a really good treat for a lot of Aussie fans that make the trip over there. But the fact they're going to put Roach and Davis on that card as well will really beef that card up. Now, the thing is, I would suspect that if Davis and Roach is on the card, that will be the main event and Tszyu Fundora will be the co-main. And I know that might be a bit hard to take for a lot of Aussies, thinking, hey, hang on, how can Tim be a co-main? Well, over there, and I would think with PBC that Davis is sort of the top dog and he will be the main event. I might be wrong, but I would just think that in the scheme of things that will be the main event. All right, what else have we got? Oh, just actually on, before I move on to the next one, Keith Thurman. And he's going to be lined up to face the winner. I think that's what George Rose said yesterday. He will, come on, buddy. He's all mixed up, tied up there. Come on, out of there. Come on. What are you doing? Oh, he's a little shit, this dog, fair income. He gets himself tangled up everywhere. So, yeah, it looks like he's going to face the winner. But there's talk that he might actually just sit out until then. There was, I think I said yesterday, Michael Zarafa had put his hand up, but by all accounts, he's not interested in Michael Zarafa, although George Rhodes did say that would be a good fight to make. But I think, judging by the tone of his voice, not too stressed about getting him back to fight Michael Zarafa. And yeah, the word is that this fight in July, the winner will fight Keith Thurman, and that fight will probably be in Australia unless, of course, Fundora wins again, and then it'll be overseas. But another Aussie fighter that sort of popped up over the weekend, the last 24 hours, and I've just lost my all my notes there, so that's always the way, isn't it? All good. But Justice Hoodie's name come up. And if you didn't see that, Fabio Wardley and Jarrell Miller, now that fight is off. Miller has actually pulled out. Now that fight is June 7th in England. But there is talk that Justice Hoodie could actually step up and fight Fabio Wardley. Now there's a couple others in the mix. Apparently Hergovich and Michael Hunter are the other two names being thrown up, but Justice Hoodie is the front runner. Now we could see him in a big fight over there with Wardley. Now I think they're talking about it being for the WBA interim title. So Justice is ranked number 1 with the WBO because he has the global title. And obviously will be in line for a shot at that WBO belt if it ever comes up being vacant or whatever. But if he does fight Wardley, he will vacate that WBO global title, whatever the hell that is and what it's worth. And he will then be eligible to fight Wardley for that belt. Now that's a really, really tough fight for Justice Hoodie. Look, it's a winnable fight. But Wardley, obviously he can fight, and that's a tough one maybe at this stage of his career. But maybe Justice and his team thinks that this is the time to maybe take a chance and have a crack at one of the sort of the bigger sort of names in the division. Not that Wardley's massive at the moment, but he's climbing, and no word on why Big Baby Miller actually pulled out, by the way, because he'd been, if you saw the press conference last week, whatever it was, he was pretty hyped up about the whole thing, but apparently he's injured. But then someone else said he might have another fight scheduled as well, so who knows. But big opportunity for Justice Honey if that is the case as well. Wouldn't it be fantastic? Now, actually, I didn't just actually mention before too, with the No Limit situation too, because of Tim's fight with Fundora on July 19, the whole schedule has changed. Now, it looks like it was going to be July 11 for the Liam Paro event in Cairns, and Nikita Tszyu will be fighting on that as well by all accounts. It has been pushed back 2 weeks to July 25th, I think they're talking about. So, and it just might have a little bit of a ripple effect with the rest of their schedule. And look, George Rose was quite right when he said, hey, look, because he was asked, well, hang on now, all these dates, what happens? He said, look, shit happens in a good way in this instance with Tim getting his world title fight, but he did say that the rest of the schedule might just be tweaked a little bit. Of course, they launched the dates at the start of the year. They of course didn't know what was going to happen in this instance, and they're just going to, as I said, tweak a few of their dates. But the first one will be that Cairns fight night, which will be now July 25th, featuring Liam Paro and Nikita Tszyu on the same card, not against each other. But what a night that will be. Now, just a couple of things before we finish up. Chris Eubank apparently is being investigated by the British Boxing Board of Control for the way he made weight. If you saw the video that he put out on social media showing how he made weight. I mean, a lot of the UFC fighters do it, don't they? But he did it, and apparently the BBC are looking into it. Hey, guys, this is the British Boxing Board of Control. Newsflash, that's what most fighters do to make weight. Maybe to not the extent, but surely the people in power there would understand what fighters go through, and that's just the norm. Now, yes, it might have been a little bit extreme, but most fighters do exactly that sort of thing. They do. So I'm not quite sure what they're going to investigate. At the end of the day, he made the weight on the days they said he had to. So we didn't know with the fights over there, you have to, I think there's 3 or 4 different sort of weigh-ins you have to do in the lead up to it, so they can see that you're losing your weight in a, let's say, a healthy way. It's never really healthy, is it? But he made the weight on all those occasions, so I'm not quite sure what they're investigating. I think that what they would probably say to Chris is, just don't put it out in, for the public to see. I think most boxing fans know what happens, but I just think it was more the look of the thing in this day and age about health and safety and all this sort of stuff, and we're all a little bit precious. Maybe they didn't want people seeing that sort of graphic footage on social media. I don't know, but I don't think they can really have a say. I think as long as he makes the weight on the days that they say he has to, I don't think it's any of their business, to be honest. I don't condone it. I think if anything, the fighters that have to do that sort of thing should move up. But end of the day, I think it's up to him, and if he meets the requirements, then what is there to investigate? So, and newsflash again to anyone that was horrified by the footage, well, just go to any fighter trying to make weight in those fights, and you'll see exactly that 100 times a year. So anyway, and a little bit of just a quick one, a little bit of pushback on the pay-per-view. Now, Chris Eubank and Conor Benn, apparently they hit the 1 million mark as far as the pay-per-view buys worldwide, though. This is the thing to remember, worldwide. Now, it used to be just in the country that was shown in, and but I think Eddie Hearn released the figures. It probably will go up, by the way, but the early figures say it's cracked 1 million worldwide, which is, I don't think, it's not massive, but in this day and age, I suppose it is, isn't it, really? It used to be that if you're in America and you crack 1 million, well, that's a mega fight. But you would think those big fights with Mayweather and De La Hoya and Pacquiao and Canelo all hitting 1 million in America and more, around the world would probably be about 5 times that. But the good figures are, we'll say, all things aside with Eubank and Ben, that to hit 1 million, no matter where it is, in this case global, yeah, really good result, and more importantly, the fight measured up to what we're all hoping. So that's probably the good thing about it. Now, of course, it's rematch time, and they're already projecting numbers for the rematch, so we will see. But there has been a little bit of pushback on Turki El Sheikh about the whole pay-per-view thing. When he first came in, there were $10 and $15 pay-per-views, and then this weekend you're paying sort of $60 for one, and I think it's two for $90. So has the little you know, the golden little period when he first came into it sort of finished, and now they're going to try and recoup some money. Now they've got full control of the sport. Are they now going to turn the screws a little bit on the boxing fans? And I think the main thing is that we've had, including this weekend, excuse me, 3 pay-per-views in 7 days. So we've got the Eubank and Ben one, then we've got the one in Times Square with Garcia, Haney and Lopez, and then the following night we've got Canelos. So 3 pay-per-views in 7 days, all at full price. So look, it was always bound to happen. I mean, these are businessmen. You can't just give your product away forever. DAZN did it when they first started here in Australia too. I think they were charging like $2 or $3 subscription, and now it's up to, what is it, $15 or $20, whatever it is. Actually, sorry, I think it might be $30 a month now. So it was always going to happen, but yeah, probably a little bit of first little pushback we've seen as far as Turki El Sheikh goes and their intentions. And one more thing, I've had said that a couple of times. Tyson Fury is apparently on the march for a 3rd fight with Alexander Usyk. I'm sure more of that will come to light, but he did say he won the first 2 fights. Everyone knows it, and let's go again. So he seems to be very vocal all of a sudden. Maybe it's a little bit been out of shape that Eubank and Connor got all the press recently, and Dubois and Usyk are about to get all the press. Maybe he's just thinking, well, I'm a little bit left out, so it's time to make some noise. But I doubt he'll fight Usyk a 3rd time, although you never know. I think if he comes back, it'll be definitely Joshua. Makes sense, doesn't it? But we will see. All right, guys, well, that's going to do it for today. Have a great Thursday, and we'll catch you tomorrow.